Hello friends, in this video we'll be taking a look at autosomal DNA results, predicted phenotype, traits, and even ancestry, well GD match results, ancestry, whatever, of 4 individuals from Chalcolithic Israel. Let's start with the first individual. It's I-1168, and this individual lived 45 to 35 centuries before the Common Era. The Common Era refers to when Christ was born. It's a woman, it doesn't have a Y chromosome, and her mitochondrial haplogroup is T2. Very interesting. Mitochondrial haplogroup T2. Where she's from this location right here in Israel. That's where all of the Israel Chalcolithic individuals are from. They're all from the same location. And let's begin with her results with NOSHACOT. So let's start with NOSHACOT results for her. And with NOSHACOT, she is scoring, it looks like, hazel eyes. Although light brown come close by second place. She is scoring brown or black hair, although the first place here is brown, so the highest likelihood of her hair color is brown hair. And she's scoring light or fair skin, so it looks like she's got light color of skin. And for hair texture, she's actually predicted to have curly or wavy hair, which is kind of typical for modern people from this area, from this location. Let's go ahead and check why she's scoring the way she is. So really, one of the big contributors to her scoring hazel eyes instead of, say, brown or dark brown is that she has blue eye haplotype 2. However, despite her having blue eye haplotype 2, she does not have blue eye haplotype 1. You know, somehow, the logistics, you're not supposed to get BEH2 without BEH1, but of course, dislinkages happen, and in this case, it's a result of a dislinkage. She does not have blue eye haplotype 1, and that definitely contributed to her scoring hazel eyes instead of like blue, but she has at the same time blue eye haplotype 2, which is very important, and it is in fact a lot more important for eye color than even BEH1 or BEH3 or any of the other blue eye haplotypes. I would say the least important of the blue eye haplotypes is blue eye haplotype 4, which she doesn't have, and neither does she have blue eye haplotype 3. Okay, interesting. Let's go ahead and check her polygenic risk scores. So for the polygenic risk scores, it looks like she's got a below average score for schizophrenia. It looks like she's got nothing genotyped for type 2 diabetes, and it looks like she's got below average score for Alzheimer's. It also looks like she's got 3 risk variants for breast cancer out of 10, which is a lot, definitely a lot, unusual, and 2 risk variants for testicular cancer out of 10, which is actually also unusual, but the other way around. Typically, you're going to see more risk variants for testicular cancer, more around half or maybe a little bit under half out of all those that are found in the file. Okay, so let's go ahead and check what she scores for the monogenic traits. She's got A gene, chromosomal variation, meaning Val-Met genotype, so she's intermediate between the warrior and the warrior genotype in COMT. However, she's got the warrior genotype in MAOA, which means overall she's probably more warrior rather than warrior. So in case you aren't familiar with what this dichotomy is, warrior versus warrior, warrior is somebody who's got really quick dopamine reuptake, less dopamine building up in the system. Warrior is somebody who's got slower dopamine reuptake, therefore more dopamine building up in the system. Both have some advantages, like being a warrior, or like this individual, for example, like her, being a warrior, you would have an advantage in stressful situations, stress resiliency. Somebody who's a warrior, on the other hand, would have an advantage in attention and motivation related tasks, right? And that's kind of the dichotomy here. She's got 2 no-go learner variants in the DRG2's pro-phenetine pro variation, so she's got much less dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. So she's got less dopamine, and she's got less dopamine receptor sites. It looks like she might have some ADHD problems, stuff like that. I'm just guessing just by the looks of it. Nothing else is interesting here. Okay, so she does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation. She does not have the European lactose persistence mutation, which in Europeans is very predictive of being able to digest milk. In her case, she's not a European, so she might be lactose intolerant, but a lot of people who aren't European are still lactose persistent. A lot of people who aren't European still have no problem digesting milk, even though they don't have this mutation, so it doesn't really matter all that much. For the empathy gene OXTR, she has 2 sociopath variants for reduced OXTR expression. Once again, less OXTR expression and lack of empathy. For type For diabetes, it looks like she does not have type 1 diabetes. She is not a carrier for the C282Y hemochromatosis mutation, good for her. And for Alzheimer's, she's got these two genotypes, which greatly reduce the risk of Alzheimer's together. This is an interesting genotype, and I want to talk about it because because it's uncommon. I usually don't talk about myopia stuff. I skip past it, but in this case, there's something to talk about. The G allele in this variation is super uncommon. It's most typical for Europeans. She's not a European, and it's pretty important in reducing the risk of myopia. So she's got lower odds of myopia, greater quality of eyesight, very uncommon genotype. Another uncommon genotype she has is that she's got heterozygous genotype here, and she carries the MINCRO-P mutation. Which I don't really believe that. I think there's some problem with sequencing the files, because I noticed that these 1240K files tend to often have this MINCRO-P mutation more often than any other type of file. So I'm thinking there is some problem with the way she was genotyped. Slightly increased cranial size and 1% higher IQ. Very interesting. Mix of muscle types, likely more sprinter than endurance athlete. And no variants for increased sensitivity in SCN9A. When it comes to EDAR, she does not have East Asian EDAR. She's got a very typical European or West Eurasian genotype in EDAR. She's also not an Asian flusher. Cool. Average odds of meth-induced psychosis. Cool. Yeah, it's heterozygous genotype here. Okay, and she's not a carrier of cutaneous albinism type 1b mutation. Cool, not a carrier of any of the albinism stuff. Well, she's not genotyped for most of these. For familiar Mediterranean fever, once again, she's not genotyped for most of these, but the ones she is genotyped for, she does not have any risk variants. Good for her. For the MCHFR panel, it looks like she's got this genotype, which is kind of uncommon, and it leads to lower blood pressure. For the breast cancer panel, I should say cancers in general, she's got a lot of risk variants for breast cancer, and this is it's really uncommon to have risk variants here and here, for example. So this may be something to look out for. However, she's got this genotype, which reduces the risk of testicular cancer by 6 times. Very great, very awesome for if she had any male children or siblings. But I don't know, these types of cancers like breast cancer, testicular cancer, they seem to have taken off in the past 50 years or so. And I'm not sure if they were even a thing back when she lived in the Chalcolithic. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Now let's go ahead and check her ethnic results. This is what she scores with Eurogenes K13. As you can see, she scores the same as every other individual I've shown in this series. They all score pretty much the same thing, basically a mixture of Anatolian Neolithic farmer and Natufian. There isn't really any CHG admixture here. There isn't really any Iranian Neolithic admixture here. And for the mixed mode, she's getting modeled as a mixture of Yemenite Jew plus Sardinian, or Yemenite Jew plus Algerian Jew. It's kind of really bad. It's really bad because look at the fit. Yemenite Jews are different from this individual. Sardinians are super different from this individual. You see, the fit isn't that good. There isn't really any modern ethnicity that's similar to this kind of a genetic profile. Well, thanks for watching. Now we're gonna move on to the second sample. Now we're moving on to the second individual. It's I1169. It's also a female, also from the same location. Her mitochondrial lineage is J2A2. It seems to be a typical mitochondrial lineage for these people. Let's go ahead and check what she scores with my trait predictor. Let's start with NOSHACOT. With NOSHACOT, she seems to be scoring blue eyes with an amber center or green eyes. So most likely her eye color was blue with an amber center ring or green. Although hazel and blue also come pretty close, she definitely didn't have light brown or dark brown eyes. So in case of, in terms of eye colors, any eye color besides brown really, but most likely blue with an amber center. That's what it means. She's predicted to have, I closed it by accident. She's predicted to have dark blonde hair. Although light blonde hair is also very likely for her. That's number 2 in terms of likelihood. And she's predicted to have light or fair skin at 93.8% likelihood. So definitely very light in terms of color. In terms of the hair texture, she's predicted to have straight hair. So she's got straight hair. She's got definitely not kinky hair. She's got light skin, and she's got dark blonde hair, and she's got blue eyes with an amber center. All right. Let's go ahead and check her actual genotypes. So she has blue eye haplotype 1. She has this genotype, which is predictive of having blue eye haplotype 1 as well. She has this genotype, which is also predictive of having blue eye haplotype 1. And she has this genotype, which is predictive of having blue eye I'm tripping. So she's got blue eye haplotype 2. She's got this genotype, which is predictive of having blue eye haplotype 2. And she's got this genotype, which is predictive of having blue eye haplotype 2. She also has blue eye haplotype 1, but she does not have blue eye haplotype 3. Interesting. And somehow she's actually heterozygous for blue eye haplotype 4, which is kind of surprising. You know, I talk about this and it's like in my brain, I have it all right, I have it all figured out, but I can't exactly put it into words, right? Sometimes that happens when you make videos. And I've made a lot of videos, and this anxiety still hasn't really gone away. Let's go ahead and check her polygenic risk scores. So for the polygenic risk scores, it looks like she's got below average score for schizophrenia, below average score for type 2 diabetes, below average score for Alzheimer's. She's got 2 risk variants for breast cancer out of 16, very healthy. But she's got 11 risk variants for testicular cancer out of 18, which is not so good. Definitely, you don't want to see 11 risk variants out of 18 for testicular cancer. That's not so good. We're going to go ahead and look at her results and see what's up with that. She's got GG in Compt's Val-Met variation, meaning Val-Val genotype, so she's a warrior in Compt. She is, however, a warrior in MAOA, so overall those kind of cancel out. She's probably, her in terms of phenotype, intermediate between warrior and warrior. In terms of the no-go learner mutation in DRD2's Pro Pro, she has 1 no-go learner variant. Okay, she does not have the AV1 allele in TOC1. So she's got typical genotype in TOC1, slightly more or basically average amount of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. Not a significantly reduced number, because if she had the AV1 allele here, she would have significantly reduced number. It looks like she's got short form 5 HTTLPR just like most people. Okay. And she does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation. However, she's got TC genotype here. So she carries 1 derived variant for European lactose persistence. Very interesting. I'm not sure whether that's due to some kind of an error in genotyping, or if she actually does have 1 derived variant for European lactose persistence here. This is sort of like for European lactose persistence, you know, there's 2 mutations that are sort of the big ones, but this one is the main one. This is the more important one that people typically talk about when they talk about MCM6 and lactose persistence. This is kind of like the underground one. So maybe it's possible that she really does have 1 derived variant here, but I don't know. I'm inclined to think it's because of genotyping errors. For the empathy gene, she's heterozygous for it, so she's got 1 sociopath, 1 empath variant for OXTR, okay. For diabetes, she does not have type 1 diabetes, good for her. For hemochromatosis, it looks like she doesn't carry any risk variants for hemochromatosis, good for her. For Alzheimer's, no risk alleles in APOE, which is the most important gene for Alzheimer's, so you really want to look out for those. Very good for her, no risk alleles in APOE. We're gonna skip that. No micro-P, good for her. No micro-P here again, good for her. It looks like a mix of muscle types, likely more sprinter than endurance athlete. Interesting. No fat gene variants in FTOs RS995961. Guys, I cannot get over how funny it is that they named this the fat gene. I didn't invent the fat gene. Somebody else did. It's literally called FTO, fat gene. F and T are in the name of the gene. You know, I find it kind of mean that they call it the fat gene, but okay, she doesn't have any risk variants for that. No variants for increased risk of obesity. Likely does not have photic sneeze reflex, but carries 1 allele for photic sneeze reflex. Very interesting. No variants for increased pain sensitivity. In terms of EDAR, she does not have E-stage and EDAR. Very good. I'm not. That sounded really racist, but not really good. I'm just saying that it's good that that's in the file. She's also not an Asian flusher. Okay, she is a carrier of cutaneous albinism type 2 mutation. That I haven't seen that, like, ever. I have never seen that before. Okay, hold on, what? Is this a genotyping error, or is this for real? So it looks like she's, not only is she really light, but she's also might be albino. Crazy. Alright, so for familiar Mediterranean fever, she's got one risk variant for that. Okay, one risk variant, but I think it's typical for people from the Middle East to have like one or two risk variants for that, so I wouldn't say it's that bad. For MCHFR, she's got this genotype, which means 10 to 20% efficiency in processing folic acid, a really bad genotype to have. Higher odds for a variety of illnesses from autism to coronary heart disease. She's got AA here, which is a common genotype and leads to slightly higher than average blood pressure. For cancers, she's got this genotype, which means two times reduced risk of testicular cancer, very good. However, there is also 3 times increased testicular cancer risk for men. There's a lot of SNPs here that I did not add on the screen for you to see, but they contribute to the score. You can look at them in the score, in the polygenic scores page. For leukemia, it looks like she's got pretty much normal genotype. Yeah, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the third individual. Now we're moving on to our third individual, which is I1170. It looks like it's a man. His Y-DNA is T1A. It looks like all of these individuals have Y-DNA T1. I don't understand what it is, where it's most common, where it's from. His mitochondrial lineage is T1A as well. And he also lived 45 to 35 centuries before the Common Era, just as all the other samples. Let's go ahead and look at his results with NOSHACOT. This is what he scores with NOSHACOT. It looks like he's got light brown eyes, either that or dark brown eyes. Pretty similar percentages. Not really, actually, not at all similar. I had to close Discord a little bit, hold on. So it looks like he's got light brown eyes, but the second, number 2, in terms of the likelihood is dark brown eyes. Number 3 looks like hazel, and the likelihood of like green or blue is really low. Really low. In terms of the hair color estimate, he's predicted to have brown or black hair. It looks like pretty much even here. And in terms of the skin color estimate, he's predicted to have light or fair skin. Very interesting. For the hair texture, he's predicted to have curly hair. Okay. Let's go ahead and check why he's scoring the way he is. So, he does not have blue eye haplotype 1, okay? And he also does not have blue eye haplotype 3, and he also does not have blue eye haplotype 4, okay? So I think if I look at his OCA2 and HERC2 eye color estimator results, they're gonna look really dark. They're gonna look really dark, aren't they? Yeah, it looks like light brown or dark brown eyes here. Yeah, and the likelihood of anything else is really low. Okay, so let's go ahead and check his polygenic risk scores. For the polygenic risk scores, he is very extreme. The most extreme of the people I've seen thus far, because he's got 5.5 times the average odds of schizophrenia for Northern Europeans. I haven't seen this with any of the other samples from this time period. He's got a, well, I'm not saying that there aren't any, I'm just saying I haven't seen any results like that. And he's got a average score for type 2 diabetes, and he's got a below average score for Alzheimer's. But in terms of schizophrenia, he's definitely got an alarming score for that. At least relative to what's typical for Northern Europeans. For cancers, he's got 2 risk variants for breast cancer out of 4, and he's got 3 risk variants for testicular cancer out of 4, also very extreme. But keep in mind that it's quite a low quality sample. So if you see there's only 4 variants that are found in total out of like 40, it's definitely a low quality sample. He's got GG in Komets-Valmet variation, which means he is a warrior. He's got 1 derived no-go learner variant in DRD2 profrenetin pro, which means intermediate number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. I'm eating my own words. He does not have the A1 allele in TAC1, so typical normal genotype in TAC1, basically normal or slightly higher number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. He does not have long-form 5-HT-LPR. You see, schizophrenia here, it's one of the most one of the traits with the highest number of SNPs used for the calculation, and most of these SNPs are not here on the screen. So I'm not really sure if I can figure out what exactly contributed to his score. I see this genotype, which leads to higher odds of schizophrenia. I see. I don't really see much here that would contribute to that, but keep in mind that it's a very large polygenic risk score. There's a lot of SNPs that go into the calculation for that one. He does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation, very interesting. He's got 2 sociopath variants for reduced OXTR expression, so more sociopath than empath in terms of OXTR genotypes. However, he's got this genotype in OXTR, which means 2 variants for higher levels of empathy in this OXTR variation, so there's some variation even here. Even in OXTR, he's got some genotypes for sociopath traits, he's got some genotypes for empath traits. For diabetes, it looks like he does not have type 1 diabetes, good for him. For Alzheimer's, it looks like he has genotypes which reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. He's not genotyped for the main variations in APOE that matter the most, unfortunately. We're gonna skip myopia. No micro-P, good for him, really good. I'm glad to see that. Really happy to see no micro-P. 1 fat gene variant in FCO's RS9939609, so he's heterozygous here. Slightly higher odds of obesity and sleep apnea. Higher odds of problems with weight. No variants for increased pain sensitivity, and in EZAR, he's got a genotype that's typical for Europeans, very atypical for East Asians, so he does not have East Asian EZAR. By the way, you will not find, on a lot of services, you will not find stuff like that. You know why? Because they will just use this one SNP right here in EZAR, and they will use it as a reference for EZAR in general. And since that's not in a file, you will not get a result. You will not even know. You won't be able to know whether or not you have East Asian genotype in your EZAR, whether your EZAR genotype is most typical for East Asians or Europeans. You wouldn't know that if you don't have another variation within the same gene that your tool looks for. And my tool does that. My tool does precisely that. So you get the whole picture, not just one SNP in a gene. Doing a little bit of promotion for my website. Lower odds of cannabis-induced psychosis, really good. And none of the albinism stuff is here in the file. None of the Mediterranean fever is here in the file. None of the MTHFR stuff is in the file. For the cancers, he's got 2 risk variants here in BRC1A. Very uncommon, very atypical. For leukemia, he's got a genotype that's pretty good actually. Lower risk of leukemia, that's good to see. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the 4th individual, the last individual of this video. Now we're moving on to the last sample of this video, which is I1178. It's I1178. And this sample is male. His mitochondrial lineage is I6. His Y-DNA looks like T1A. Same time period, same place. Let's go ahead and look at his NOSHACOT results and his trait predictor results and get it over with. With NOSHACOT, this is what he scores. It looks like he's got light brown or dark brown eyes. Very low percentages for all the other eye colors. Even for hazel eyes, only under 5%. So definitely very dark in terms of eye color. He's also got very dark hair. He's got black hair. Very low likelihood for any other hair color besides black. For skin shade prediction, he's got, it looks like intermediate or olive skin for number 1, or dark or brown skin for number 2. And for hair texture, he's got, looks like straight or wavy hair. Alright, let's see what contributed to this result. And what contributed to this result is he's heterozygous for blue eye haplotype 1. He does not have blue eye haplotype 2. He does not have blue eye haplotype 3, and he does not have blue eye haplotype 4. So, heterozygous for blue eye haplotype 1. There is a light allele here in VH1, but that's not enough to give you even hazel eyes. It's still very dark eye color for him. The prediction for him is to have still very dark eye color. Let's go ahead and check his OCA2 and HERC2 eye color calculator results. I'm just curious what he would score here if you only factor in OCA2 and HERC2. So if you only factor in OCA2 and HERC2, he's scoring light brown or dark brown eyes once again. 52% for light brown, 30% for dark brown. Looks like dark eye color, even if you only take into account OCA2 and HERC2. Alright, let's go ahead and check his polygenic risk scores. For the polygenic risk scores, it looks like he's got a very below average score for schizophrenia, very low score for schizophrenia, slightly above average score for type 2 diabetes, and below average score for Alzheimer's. For breast cancer, he's got 4 risk variants out of 8, and which is really atypical. Once again, super atypical. And he's got 8 risk variants for testicular cancer out of 16, which is pretty normal, pretty average. Let's go ahead and check his monogenic stuff. It looks like he's got AA in Commons Met variation, meaning Met genotype, meaning warrior genotype. What about MAOA? In MAOA, he's actually got warrior genotype. So he's warrior in MAOA and warrior in Compt. Altogether, this kind of equalizes into intermediate dopamine, speed of dopamine reuptake, intermediate dopamine levels in the brain. He's got 2 derived no-go learner variants and 0 Pro-frenetin Pro. Very interesting. So he's got intermediate speed of dopamine reuptake, intermediate levels of dopamine in the brain, but less dopamine D2 receptor sites, which is very interesting. He does not have the A1 allele in TAC1, which would further reduce the amount of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. In his case, he's got normal typical genotype. I think my suspicion, because I couldn't find any research on just how much of an impact Pro-frenetin Pro has, my suspicion is that TAC1 has a much bigger impact than Pro-frenetin Pro in terms of how much dopamine, how many dopamine receptors you got in your brain. Dopamine D2 receptor sites. Alright, for lactose persistence, he does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation. Very interesting. For OXTR and the empathy gene, he's got 2 variants for higher levels of empathy. It looks like he's more of an empath. For diabetes, he does not have type 1 diabetes. Good for him. And for Alzheimer's, no risk alleles for Alzheimer's in APOE. Very good. We're going to skip that. No micro-P. Very good. Increased cranial size and 2% higher IQ. I don't really care about that. Better performing muscles, likely sprinter than endurance athlete, and no fat gene variants in FTOs RS9949609. He's not predisposed to be obese. GG in SCN9A, so no variants for increased pain sensitivity, and he does not have East Asian EDAR. Very good. Oh, I said it again. Oh, I can't stop being racist. And he's got GG here, which means not an Asian flusher. Alright. He's not a carrier of cutaneous albinism type 1B mutation, doesn't have any albino variants, any albinism variants, and he also, it looks like he doesn't have any risk variants for familiar Mediterranean fever, although most of this stuff is simply not found in the file for him. For MTHFR, he's got this genotype, which is common genotype, average or slightly higher than average blood pressure. For breast cancer, for cancers in general, I have these like predetermined sentences that I have prepared in my brain for when I'm talking about these videos, and I should stop doing that. I should go ahead and get myself together. Stop saying that. So for cancers, it looks like he's got 3 times increased testicular cancer risk for men. He's got some genotypes that increase the risk of testicular cancer. It looks like he's also got some genotypes that increase the risk of breast cancer. Very interesting. I think he had an atypical score, if I remember right. And for leukemia, he's got this genotype, which slightly lowers the risk of leukemia. Alright. For rare diseases panel, none of this stuff was found in the file. Alright, well, that's pretty much all there is to it. Thanks for watching until the end of the video. You can download all 4 samples from the description. The links to download all the 4 samples will be in the description. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy my content, and goodbye.